But that's exactly right. So I feel like, yeah, I don't think waste is necessarily the word you, and you corrected
Right.
it, yourself. I think efficiency. I don't think it is as efficient to, you know, uh, check into my practice at 10 a.m. after momentum of other things have already started to accumulate. So it's really important to determine the momentum. That's ultimately what we're doing is we are learning to direct intention to the point where we can determine just about every little fine detail of our life experience without trying to control, without it being heavy. Um, but the idea is,
I can feel the difference of not doing that.
oh, yeah,
Sometimes I just get right up and then I don't think about it. And then I start my coffee and I like to wake up slowly. I like for there to be no noise and no words for a time and you just hear the sounds outside. But I haven't established the space to the degree that I prefer. And I notice that I can't help but notice that I look at the time and I go, oh my gosh, like I'm well into the day and I haven't really engaged the space. I've been coasting kind of. I mean, it's a nice morning and I did appreciate things, but not to the degree that I want to. And then I have to start from that point, and it's not efficient.
not as efficient, you know. We put it in the grand scope of things, better than nothing, right? But yeah, I think I put that in Egong layer one. Engage the second you wake up. Maybe someday, I don't know. I don't have a lot of empirical evidence for this one, but maybe someday you can, in your dreamscape, check in, realize you're dreaming, understand that you're about to wake up, and prepare yourself for the awakening. That is possible. I wouldn't say I do that every night with every dream. Sometimes dreams can take a moment to check in. You ride the roller coaster for a second and then you check in and you're like, oh, yeah, this is obviously a dream. And then you can walk in it, or you can wake yourself up, or you can change it to a certain extent. But you can actually also start to initiate your practice even before you wake up. That's hypothesis, though, because I have no reason. I have nobody else has ever spoken these things to me before. So you know me, I'm just very careful to clarify what is a hypothesis, what is empirically evident, what is theoretically evident, and what is, at least in my view, laws of the universe or principles. I don't prefer the word laws, principles of the universe.
I have a question. So in the beginning of that explanation, you said, in that depiction, it wasn't an explanation, it's just what you do. Um, you said that I like to I'm getting up early. I prefer to get up early because I do a lot of things while I'm still in bed because there are things that want to get in. Um, and I assume, or it's a question, is that because your routine has changed? So the thoughts about the routine, because I was away, I was in Long Island for a few days, and then I was at a friend's in Southington, cat sitting and house sitting, and so my environment was different. You know, my brothers I'm more used to. Um, my goddaughter's house was a new place for me to stay. I was house sitting, cat sitting, and I was very distracted. I I didn't I found it more challenging. It required a more of a degree of effort and remembering because I was in completely different surroundings. So my routine, I it wasn't as accessible as it was because my routine was changed, especially by a cat who gets up in,
Hmm.
different hours than me and things like that.
Sure. So for me personally, I would say it has less to do with routine and more to do with sheer information. And the amount of information that I am taking in right now is way more than what I'm used to.
So
The
your practice requires more.
So my practice requires more attention to the elements of balance, Otherwise, I'll be more prone to, my mind will fixate potentially on certain topics or certain classes. And I don't want to wake up in the morning and start thinking about all of the areas of the scapula. That's not the time nor the place for me, for my mind to go that direction. Now, I am basically creating ways that work for me in terms of studying, and I'm actually using the embodiment technique to where, rather than thinking random thoughts like most people are doing throughout the day, I will think very deliberate thoughts about particular subjects at segments throughout the day. Um, Basically, I don't want to focus on any one subject. Way, Sometimes it's appropriate because, for example, anatomy is my weak link. So that's going to get a little bit more of my study time, but I turn it on. I turn it on. I don't want it to turn on itself, if that makes sense. So I have to make sure that when I wake up in the morning, I don't start thinking about the things that I learned the day before, the things that I need to memorize. There's a lot of memorization in this program. It's medical school. I mean, it's a different type of memorization, but the amount that you memorize is the same as any other medical school. Um, One channel in the body has over 63 points. You have to know every single point, where to locate them, what their function is, how they connect to the channel, and how that channel connects to another channel. And it's a lot. So some of my practice is reminding myself that all I can do is just a little bit, little bit, little bit, stay focused, keep your intentions, where they need to be. But even Shayna yesterday, she was, we were kind of talking about it because I feel more pressure from the world around me. It's not going in and out. What would be going in and out would be worrying, thinking about all the stuff you have to do. Maybe even some folks would leak power. They would say they can't, or this is too much, or that's pressure coming from the inside out. This is more of a pressure from the world around me, and I just need to navigate and adapt and redirect as necessary. By pressure, I mean there's a lot coming into my bubble of perception. And that could disrupt the balance of hydrostasy if I were to lose my focus and intention in practice. And I'm not going to do that. That's not a part of the plan here. So routine, not as much. I do agree though. Routine can definitely shift things, and that shift is different. You're in a different environment potentially, a different time of day potentially, different surroundings potentially. And so the practice has to be adaptable to that change. And that's what this is all about, is being able to adapt to change. I have a lot of change very fast, all at once, and that requires adaptation. Sometimes it feels a little clunky, like I can really feel the pull, and I'm like, no, 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 everything is going to be fine. You're studying, you're doing a good job, you're a good student, you don't need to worry, you don't have to hit the panic button yet. Things like that. So yeah, balance, adaptation.
Yeah, that happened when I retired, sold my house, had to empty it, move, new place, find, all of that. There was a lot of outside happening. And I did have a practice, but it certainly wasn't all day long. So I can understand that idea of the pressure from the outside. And because I did not have a physical practice in place beforehand, I was doing it when I felt like it. And I didn't have a physical practice in place. I think that all of that attributes to the injury and the hospitalization, and I was just off balance and it was very clunky. I navigated those things better than I ever would have in the past because of the practice that I had, but I didn't have it to the degree where it could have been more efficient. I guess that's going to be always the case, right? Your level of adaptation gets more and more fine-tuned the more you practice. So
Yes.
yeah, I can see that. I have a question though. In the places, do you mind this, or did you have a topic for today?
Nope, group study.
Okay.
Nothing.
I have another question then. So you said you now choose, because there is a lot to memorize, because there is a lot to do, it's going to occupy time during the day. for you to focus upon it, even though you haven't decided I'm sitting down and studying now, but you've incorporated those pockets of I'm going to choose to think about this in this segment of the day. The question is, when you say I didn't want to wake up and think about all points of the shoulder, I know that I mean the clavicle. I know you were thinking about, you were just using that as an example, but it was probably what you recently studied. So, and that's what's on your mind, or that's what you've been doing. So, scapula, did I not say scapula? Oh,
Uh,
scapula's in the back.
yeah,
I'm pointing at my clavicle and I'm saying yeah, that's,
I know that. Isn't that awesome? No, a week ago
is that,
I didn't know that. Yeah, there we go.
yeah, no, I know that. I just, it's my, sometimes I say, what did I say? Because I didn't calculate, I didn't compute that. But anyway, so when you're doing your physical practice, your movement, um, have you incorporated attention on points and things that you're learning in class, or is it totally separate?
No, I was doing that
I
before.
got,
That's one
oh,
of the reasons
yeah, but you didn't know all of it before. You're
um
just
so
learning.
so that's actually one of the reasons I got into the acupuncture program. That was like a segue for it almost, is that I bought the points book of acupuncture and I started to incorporate specific points relative to Tai Chi.
Mhm.
I've been maintaining those as points of attention for some time now, but you could look at this program as the completion, or completion's a weird word, but of all of my physical practices. Like all of my physical practices are coming into a more clear focus of what they do and where they come from, and
Mhm.
how I do it a little bit differently than what is being recommended,
Mhm.
or how it's worded. So I view this program as and I think that's one of the reasons I'm going to be so successful, is because I'm viewing this as an enrichment of my practice. It's a connection of things that just make everything flow, and it's more understandable, and I'm going to be able to teach it better.
And
Um,
perfect timing. I think Jerry wrote something about that. Like
I
it's
think
time, it's time for this. No, I just meant as you learn more points, can
oh
you visualize them, think of them with your movement?
yes.
You incorporate that as a study, not as a study, but now I am choosing to think about this now while I'm doing this.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I'm sort of personally researching is the use of imagination in study. So I want to have a balance. I don't want to just think. The words should still be in check. I don't, there needs to be space. The words need to be deliberate. They should not be repetitive unless I'm repeating them for memory purposes. But I'm more about associative and imagination, and I think those things are helping me more than just trying to memorize a word. I really don't think that works well for me and my brain. It helps. I mean, it's an aspect, but it's not. I'm not going to lean on that. So to answer your question, first of all, we're not focusing on points just yet, because I'm a little bit of a head in that regard, because when I'm on the train, I have my points book. I've been looking at the points for months and months now and talking to acupuncturists about the points and the channels. But in this program, you don't start there. You start with anatomy, you start with biology, you start with the philosophy, you start with the history, you start with the foundations, and you actually don't really get into points until like your third term, close to your second year. Now, that being said, as I'm walking, as I'm doing Tai Chi, I am envisioning the scapula. I'm envisioning the different muscles and the different acupuncture. And I've been doing the acupuncture points and the movement just with intention, not with thought. Of course, there's a big difference between those two. So I am using intention, imagination, as I do my physical practices, including walking and sitting and things like that, all throughout the day. Um, so more so than words in my mind, I am really focusing on imagining I have found it really beneficial. Like this morning, I was imagining as I was making coffee, there's the scapula, and I can imagine, what did we just say? Clavicle. Yeah, and that this, looking at the joint, I didn't know this was a joint. Nobody told me this was a joint, and that's the only place that our shoulder really connects to our torso. It's like, when was anybody going to tell me this? So, um, first of all, I think loving to learn is important. Having something that you're passionate about and that connects to every aspect of your life, I think all of these things will facilitate learning. I think what we do sometimes is when we put ourselves in situations where we're just trying to get to an end, everything is just a means to an end. I think that person will have a lot more difficulty learning new things because it's not like, oh, I just opened this book and this is just information that I just, really enjoy and I really want to know. I want to know the human body. One of the main reasons is because I am taking the phrase know thyself to the nth degree, including the fabric of the moment itself, because that's a part of me. But what about deep? What about inside the body? And quite frankly, Tai Chi teachers could save so much time if they could just use anatomical wording. If they could talk about things in an anatomical way, we could all say, let's talk about the coccyx. Let's talk about what is the tailbone, where is it going, how is it in relation to the rest of the physiological structure, rather than using all of these mystical terms that people are like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just going to go with it anyway. So I think both can exist. The mystical terms, balance is the principle, but also having an anatomical knowledge and understanding the physiology of the human body, for me personally, falls into the category of know thyself. I want to know myself, even on a molecular level. And I understand the cell now. Like, holy shit, like, why didn't anybody tell me about this? You know? So,
I
um,
think the balance exists. It used to seem like an imbalance when I knew less about it. Because it just seemed like everybody picks a thing that they enjoy studying and they can learn that to a level of mastery, and that's just what they're into. But I don't like necessarily need to know about racket ships or how my car works. The basics I need to know. I need to know what happens in my house so I can maintain it. Where the main shutoff valve is. But more than that, I'm not so interested. But I really am interested because I do I have absorbed over the years a lot of things because I find how things work interesting. Um, but to your point, I think that if you're going to talk about spirituality and the universe and how we're all connected, and then all those things that seem very esoteric, um, if you don't have the opposite balance of some knowledge of how this vehicle that you're in for your entire life works, then your connection to the more you know about it, this is the point I want to make, not so many words. Um, the more you know about this, the more you can see the similarity between any other ecosystem, including a spiritual ecosystem, and then how you interact with it and how it interacts with you and how you are it and how it is you. So just saying those words sound, yes, we're all connected, and I am it, I am the if you don't have some sense of how this works, or if you don't have some awareness, if your attention is not on it all day every day, then how can you possibly, you can only connect to the rest of it to a degree because you're only connected to this to a degree. So yeah, I can see how that's part of the balance, and it may sound excessive to learn all the points, but it's not any more excessive than it is to be a botanist and learn all the things about a plant, or an astronomer and learn all of the things about the planets or whatever.
yeah,
Geologist, you could pick anything.
anything really. And the word temperament is a word that I use in terms of conscious creation. And each individual has a different temperament, different interests, different things that excite them. And so we can all be doing the same Qigong practice, and we will each create something very unique because we're unique individuals. We have unique desires and ideas and interests. Some people want to know everything about cars, even though they don't really do shit with them. It's just their thing. They like to know details. So, some people are into some things and other things. And of course we know that, but when you get out of your own way, intelligence and desire get closer together. And so the things that you want are closer to your actual temperament and not necessarily the five destroyers. So that's a really important differentiation to make. So yeah, if that answers the question or the comment. But yeah, there's so many principles in this. I think the thing to watch if you're interested is this process of conscious creation and how it works. Yesterday, I lost my glasses, and people started looking, and I was like, no, 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 nobody, you don't have to do it. I appreciate it, but they'll find me. They've got to be in this room somewhere. They got to be in this small space that I haven't left for the last 3 hours. Don't worry, they'll find me. And then I went to the little, they were having like a little gap, and then I came back in the room. Boom, glasses right there. I just looked right at them. I just instantly, and everybody was like, oh my God, it worked. It's like exactly what you said. And I'm like, this is going to be a reoccurring theme the more you get to know me. I am giving the example of law of attraction and conscious creation to the nth degree. I am creating exactly the life that I want, exactly how I want, and all of the details are exactly where I want them to be with adaptation in mind, rather than force, manipulation, and trying to control. So
as desire and learning unfold at the same time. So it's a synchronicity of all those things.
yes.
It's not I wanted this, so
Mhm,
now it's all falling into place. It's
mhm,
the desire continues as the falling into place continues.
yes.
That's really how the law of attraction is a continuum. It's not a I want a car, so I get a car thing.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. Um, However, you could end up with a new car if that's what it was a part of that matrix of synchronicity and connection um, and how close, because you can still be a very powerful creator and intelligence and desire be completely uh, light years apart, right? Because the desires could still all be influenced by the five destroyers, because personal power and the power to create comes from one dynamic: intention and will builds personal power, period. That is a principle. You can see that in every human being all around the world, and you can even see it to a degree in nature. I don't know the psychology of all of these animals, but does that make sense? So if you watch closely, I'm probably not going to point it all out, because that can start to sound, for me, it feels like it's uh, the promotion of self. And in order to promote myself, that means I'm thinking about myself, talking about myself. Now I do it here, because Donna was asking questions, and it's relative, and it's helpful, hopefully, to the group. But I definitely don't want to toot my own horn or anything. But if you really watch what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, compare that to what we were talking about originally, you will see conscious creation personified. Like, it is what I'm doing. And I'm doing it without trying to control, without trying to manipulate, without trying to force anything. It is get out of the way, allow everything to flow. Things will make connections, understanding will occur, opportunities will present. Opportunities are always presenting themselves, but if you're distracted, you don't see it. Now all of a sudden you're seeing all of the opportunities to adapt, opportunities to change your own behavior, opportunities to change your own thought patterns in the moment as it's happening. And that is the definition. I just take conscious creation just maybe a little step further into complete embodiment of the process. Does that make sense? And I think at some point we have to talk about the Yang Sheng. Like, I want to talk about the person who created the Yang Sheng is a guy named a guy who is, and I will probably start coaching this. This is something that I'm going to put on my website. I'm going to organize it, and the required text for the class that I'll be teaching is this. This
Is
came.
it is it Yang or Yang?
Yang. I haven't heard it said out loud. I'm assuming Yang.
Yang Shen.
Yang Sheng. Yeah. Yang Shen.
Yeah. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I need to know when I looked it up and I listened to it and it was different in different
Yeah.
different Chinese dialects. So I don't know. I need to, when I read it, I hear it in my head. So I needed to know how to say it or pick one so that I could say it the same way every time I read it. Otherwise, it would slow me down.
I am going, I can give you the epitome of conscious creation and synchronicity. If you were even a little bit confused about how do these terms show up and like how does this manifest in your life, I'm going to read a quote from the person who created this nourishing life. You can call it Yang Shen Fa. Fa means method. It is an actual method it's its own branch of traditional Chinese medicine that gets no airtime because it's embodiment. And just like everything else that's embodiment, people are like, well, I don't know about embodiment. Like, I'd rather just do the shit I do and I'll flirt with it and I'll talk about it. Like, I'll know it all, but I won't actually do anything with it. So I'm going to read a quote by the creator of Yangshen. And you can tell me if this resonates with how I have been presenting myself up to this point. I do actually really find it incredibly fascinating when I put something together on my own. And when I say on my own, I don't mean I just plucked it out of thin air. It was a accumulation of life experiences and things being introduced to me in tidbits, and then I put it together. I'm already embodying the Yangshen to the nth degree. Every single thing in this book I have put focus towards. And to have it in my lap already assembled, I'm like, well, I don't need to reinvent this wheel. Why the hell would I do that?
Yeah, that was Jerry's comment on the chat. I think
Yeah,
that's what she was alluding to, the perfect timing of that and how you've been doing it all along. And here is the book. So you don't have to, and I don't want to say waste time, but you know what I mean. You don't need to
efficiency.
spend time because it's already right here and you can just take it from this point and
Yeah.
then add to it. The only thing I didn't like is the subtitle, which is The Art of Chinese Self-Healing. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't offend me, but to me, healing, maybe that's because of where I am in the evolution of my own whatever, or where the way Western looks at healing. I think healing assumes broken. And I would just, the art of Chinese self-balance is more appropriate because healing means something's wrong and fluctuations in balance occur. That's, I don't want to say normal, it's expected. It's everything is to a degree. So when you think of healing, you think of sickness. It's tied together, illness or sickness that you need to change. And I don't know, that always, I always get stuck on that. Like it's just a
Yeah,
practice of wellness. It's a wellness practice.
sure. No, and and I completely agree. I'm not a fan of the word heal. I don't really want to use it at all. That's just me. However, one day I was talking to Roger because Roger at the clinic, he has a similar viewpoint about every phrase in the Shen, the saying on the wall, cleanse, calm, heal, renew. He has an issue with every single word. And I can see that, I can see what he's talking about. Cleanse, what are you cleansing? The blood always has waste. Nobody has ever detoxed in their life, period. Nobody has. I don't care who they are.
That's the yin and yang of life, is that there has to be both to exist.
Every
So
single human being, I don't care how long their detox was, has waste in their blood. And if they don't, you have a problem. You have a real problem, and you should go to the emergency room. So these things that we see in society, like detox, it's bullshit. It really is. It's just catchphrase to get your attention so that they can separate you from your money. And I get it because people want to feel good. But here's my point. I told Roger that while you do have that view of that word, other people don't. So really, that phrase is for them, right? Heal. People see heal and like, oh, I really want to heal. Cleanse. Oh, I would just love to get all of the toxins out and cleanse. So I am 100% in alignment with your sentiment towards these words. I don't personally use them, but I do understand, and this is also translating from some of it is ancient Chinese script, because Sun Simiao is I should know the dynasty. I don't yet, so please excuse me, but that's where traditional Chinese medicine began in the 50s as we understand it today, but the medicine itself began really around the Sun Min Miao, and he is the inventor of the Yangsheng. So it all
And
happened.
that gets us back to the quote that I got you off the
Yes, no,
topic.
that's okay. So I completely agree with the usage of the words. I'm okay with them because I know what they're trying to do with them. When I teach it, I'll do just like you. This is a word that I don't particularly use. I know why it's in the book. If you resonate with that word, by all means, let it be the wind in your sail. I don't. I don't really look at things as especially the way that people look at self-healing and the healing process, and I need to heal my wounds and heal my traumas. If you really listen to the way that they're talking, they are constantly broken, and that's a form of leaking power. So I don't participate in that one iota. So yes, Donna, I 100% agree with that sentiment. That heal is a weird word. If you've
Right.
broken your bone, let it
My
heal.
family, will say, "Oh, you're doing another self-healing thing." Like, "Are you ever going to be healed?"
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, that's not what it is, but whatever.
Right. I put down in the chat, the art of nourishment and personal growth is the best way that I would describe it. You're nourishing your mind, your body, your energy body for the purpose of continuous personal growth.
Nourishment is a great
Nourishment
word.
is a great word. Yeah, and that's what the Yangshen stands for, is nourishing life. So I'm going to read a quote by the person who created all of this. You're going to see why it's not popular in the world. And Jerry, the whole declaring war on money and things like that, which I don't do because I don't I don't declare war. It will come into better perspective with this quote. Okay, so this is Sun Mi Miao. He was considered one of the original, if not the original, Chinese physician, way ahead of time in terms of Western medicine. Western medicine will reject this because it requires too much from the physician. It's like, oh, wait, no, I don't know. I became a doctor for my 7-figure salary. Like, let's be honest. Okay,
They have to label themselves as preventive medicine doctors if they're going to do that because
exactly. And there should be no differentiation. Yeah. Now, this very first sentence is what would burst most people's bubbles, is in one's daily practice, because most people don't have a daily practice, period. They don't have an embodiment practice. They don't have a physical practice. And if they do, great. Very rarely are they taking their yoga off the mat outside of verbiage. People love to talk about things. When you get done with yoga class, everybody gets together and has a latte and talks about stardust in the universe. Hey, that's awesome. It doesn't really add up to much. It's still just chit chat. Okay, so in one's daily practice, we must have an attitude of self-possession and concentration. Enter Igong. Oh, by the way, Igong is what will make Yangshen possible. Embody Igong, Yangshen, easy as pie, eventually. So self-possession and concentration, that is Igong. Self-possession is cognitive attention training. Concentration is E, mind intention exercise. We can practice that. Here we are practicing that. Isn't that great?
mind attention sounds a lot more accurate and oh, less subject to confusion than
The beginning.
concentration. Concentration sounds like the opposite of what we want to do
Did I
to
say
me. Yeah,
possession
that's
and concentration? Yeah. But we are doing a form of concentration though. It's
yes.
focused. Yeah.
Yep.
Qigong is concentration. But you're right. Some people may view that as trying to de-arm a bomb or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. A narrow focus of attention.
A narrow focus of hard thinking.
It could a person could associate it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, we don't, and we know that concentration in this context, he's not talking about just sitting there thinking about shit.
And neither of this does this quote.
Neither does this quote. Definitely not. Nope. Concentration, have a dignified appearance. I'm okay on that end. Treat all patients equally with no regard to wealth, gender, status, nature of ailment, or potential rewards. Why? Because it can corrupt the physician. Their intentions can become corrupt because they're no longer doing it for the medicine and to help. They may say that, oh, I love helping people, for approximately, what birth now, a childbirth in Illinois cost about $70,000. CCC with potential rewards, and live a pure life of utmost devotion to easing the suffering of one's fellow human beings, regardless of physical discomforts, while abstaining from luxuries and criticizing one's fellow physicians. Now, the discomforts one can be a little bit tricky, but it will come more into focus when the mind isn't clinging and attaching to comfort. So you can be comfortable and uncomfortable and still feel free. Now, this isn't saying that the physician should always feel uncomfortable, but if they do, that does need to be navigated in a way that doesn't affect the patient. Does that make sense? So this is, in my opinion, not only how medicine should be shared, but how anything self-help should be shared. That's my opinion, so that it avoids the corruption. And this was in ancient China, not in modern capitalistic America. So you can imagine how much it applies now more than ever, because of the temptations that can come from the rewards, from the luxuries, from the wealth, from the status. I love that this college has no summa cum laude and all of the dean's lit. It's not a competition. We're not trying to compete with one another. We're not putting each other up on pedestals. We're following the Tao Te Ching. If you know something, put yourself below the people to help lift them up, rather than trying to be haughty and hold it over people and trying to pull them up. Does that make sense? Exactly, Eda. You don't always have to be comfortable or vice versa. You're not necessarily seeking or avoiding, and you know that both are going to occur in your lifetime, right? There's going to be moments where you're comfortable, moments when you're uncomfortable. And as a physician, you shouldn't let uncomfort or discomfort influence your delivery of the medicine. When I say the medicine, I'm not talking about internal medicine, pharmacology. I'm talking about all of it. The medicine, which includes Qigong, by the way. I will include Qigong as a part of the medicine. Does that make sense? And if we go through this chapter by chapter by chapter, you'll see this is what we've been doing to some extent or another for the last 5 or 6 years. And I've been doing it for a couple decades, putting it together bit by bit by bit. And you all as well. A lot of the stuff you'll find it very familiar. It just is here in this convenient, and also it has a bibliography, which for me legitimizes the text to the nth degree, because I can go and find where all of these thoughts came from, where did she learn it. But yeah.
It's really written so simply. It seems like you could read this if you didn't have experience with it and see it as light reading. Like there's really not a lot in here. Of course, if I did this all day, every day, I'd be great. But that's not what I'm looking for. I need a 7-minute video where
Yeah.
I'm going to become ripped. So it all depends on what your intention is, because it's not, Ida, there's nothing new in here. You're not going to miss anything. If we talk about it, there's nothing. Oh, of course, there are things that maybe you've never heard of, but there's nothing mind-blowingly. It's very simple, and it's said very simply. It's really well written and organized, but it's not something you would notice you know, unless you've practiced. Then you go, wow, that's really well put together, because it's very simple. And it's about living consciously all day, every day, and incorporating a daily practice into your life, which we all already know. But this is what Ernest has come back full circle to start at the beginning with Qigong, and then at the same time is working on these million points in your body. So there's let's start from the beginning and put it all together kind of thing. And this fits right into it, as Jerry said earlier. my comment was gonna be, you say first thing in the morning when you open your eyes, you think of, what are the three things? Your longest reach, your highest, what are they again?
Deepest love, longest reach, highest vision.
I should write that down because I ask you every time.
I mean, it's a personal meditation. I do
I
recommend it.
understand, but I just don't want to keep asking you it. So if I read it, it will become deepest love, highest reach?
Longest reach, something that is always just outside of your touch and that other people would consider impossible. And then your highest vision changes because you continue to attain your highest vision, i.e. conscious creation.
Right.
Visualize
So I
everything.
understand. Okay, so when you know, those points you check into, which is in the space, so you're elongating your space um as you are entering those uh I want to say thoughts, but it's really not, as you're embodying each of those feelings and those emotions and those visions. Um, so when you just read that quote, and we're talking about the physician, because this is what they're talking about Yang Shen.
Yes.
So it fits together. If you're going to um, if people are going to come to you for self-healing, then you have to embody this in order to exchange anything, because otherwise I mean, that's what's required. So you have to be doing it for yourself. You have to be embodying this for yourself so that you can assist somebody in opening the channels for that for themselves. That makes perfect sense to me. It's what I it's what I said in class all the time. You know what? I do this when I'm a nurse. Why don't I do this all day long? I do this in an emergency. I do this before Reiki. I did all of these things to empty my cognition. I didn't really phrase it that way and I didn't break it down that way, but I understood the concept that you just read, that I have to get myself out of this equation, my ego self, my thinking self. So there's been cognitive training going on for me for a long time. I just I didn't put it all together that way. But um, if in you doing that in the morning, your deepest love, your longest reach, your highest vision, that is the ultimate world that you see. The way people exist, everybody is doing what you just quoted. So it doesn't matter if you're the physician or you're the grocer or you're the guy who is chopping wood and carrying water. You're all doing that because that is the highest vision, right?
It's the longest reach, but yes,
Okay,
the longest reach is the thing that
uh,
some
it-
people may consider impossible, and it will always be a little bit beyond your reach because
right,
it's so far. But yes,
because
it is.
everybody has to do it, right?
Everybody has to do it. Yeah. Well,
Okay,
to some
so I
extent.
just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
even though we're talking about the physician who is the practitioner of Yang Shen, I'm looking at the book. Um, it's really ultimately because we're not all going to be physicians
No,
of
no, no.
of acupuncture. So, but it's still what we talk about in class.
Yes.
That quote still applies because it's an embodiment practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that Yang Shen is for everybody. It's for this is a gift to mankind or to humankind, in my opinion. Um, and
And it's clear that the writer of this book,
yes,
particularly, not the creator of Yangshen,
right.
Katie Brindle,
Well, no,
she
she's
started,
Katie Brindle is the author of the book, not the creator of Yang Shen.
yes, that's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay, okay,
And
yeah.
in addition, she seems to be someone who heard of this, fell upon it at the right time, it came together for her,
Yes,
started practicing it, and noticed that life is
yes,
different because
yes.
I've embodied this thing. And so therefore, I should write a book.
Put
I
in
would
it.
imagine that she co-wrote it with the creator somehow
I'm assuming.
because it's eloquent and
Yes.
simple.
And there
That's
are
what makes it eloquent. It's so simple.
and there's technique. That's one of the biggest things. It
Yes.
offers things that you can do and you can experiment with them, like making um some people could take a full cold shower, but what it recommends in the morning is at least giving yourself some cold water to invigorate chi, to get, and it's true, isn't it? Like if you're in hot water and then you finish your shower with 3 or 5 minutes of cold water, you're like, like everything. And there's physiological reasons for this. There's energy reasons for this. Try it, you like it, you don't like it. It's not for but the principle of the matter is what we're really looking at. And I'll be
And she even talks about, you could try it this long or that longer,
exactly.
and then she goes on to this. So it seems like you could skim through this really fast, but like I already want to put tabs in it to
Me
go,
too.
okay, I'm gonna do
Oh,
this
I'm gonna
today.
dissect the crap out of this book. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
break down every sentence and every word, and yeah,
and
100.
the gua sha tool,
Yes.
you could get them, or you could just use, a jelly jam jar lid, or you could use the back of a spoon, like if you want to just try it. It's never you must do this, and it never
Exactly.
is you must have this tool,
I
and
love that.
she doesn't make it lofty or unaccessible.
I agree completely. Yeah. So if we talk about we talked about the longest reach, but the highest vision, it continues to change. I have a an inkling, I have a desire to go on to neurology after traditional Chinese medicine and practice acupuncture while going to school for, actually it'll be a PhD. So it is school, but I'll be getting paid for it. And what do you think I want to do with neurology? Exactly, it all fits. So Qigong with neurology, with traditional Chinese medicine, put it together, you have two things. One I didn't invent, and you could call it neural acupuncture. That would mean basically acupuncture to help address neurological issues such as depression, such as anxiety, or even certain types of abnormal psychologies. I'm really interested in using modern science and modern instrumentation to show what is occurring in the human brain when they're practicing Qigong and embodying Yang Shen. I want to take somebody before they practice, do all of our scans, as there, and accumulate data and do it as, because I am 100% positive that when you create space and engage it, there is an electrochemical, physiological, and hormonal response occurring.
That's already being done.
It is
You're probably going to end up falling upon the company of people who are already doing it. You'll
already doing
find each
it,
other,
right.
just like you found your glasses. But that's already occurring. They're doing it during meditation, and they can
Oh
see
yeah,
the moment where you really engage the space. You see what happens in the brain when that happens, and then the person can tell you what they felt, what they saw, and then how that relates to how they take away from that experience in their daily lives. And so it is going on now. You're just going to be the one who adds dimension to that, and more techniques that are not just meditation techniques. They're going to be Qigong techniques.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of cognitive or neural acupuncture, yeah, I didn't make that term up. There's already people doing it. There's already, advances in that regard. But I'll put in chat what isn't there that will go with these studies. And I call it cognitive acufocus. It is impossible without space. So cognitive acufocus is something that has a disadvantage in terms of treatment to a certain extent because you have to embody it. You cannot have acufocus, and acufocus is attention on acupuncture points, acupuncture channels, and the flow of chi, macro and microcosmic orbit, for example. But a person would have to be able to embody that and put attention on these points as often as possible, if not eventually all throughout the day, while doing everything else as a part of their complete embodiment. So my hypothesis is that so you have things, acupressure, where you're putting pressure on the acupuncture point, and that will create a physiological response. Needles, of course, you put any needle in your body, we don't have to look at it as traditional Chinese medicine, it's going to have a response. You cannot penetrate the dermal barrier with a steel and not expect the body to respond. True, it's very thin steel, but it's a very thin body, cells are very tiny, so it's interacting on a molecular and cellular level is what's happening. So, but what about treatment results from focusing your mental awareness, your mental attention, the Qigong, on the acupuncture point for a particular treatment outcome. So let's say somebody comes in and they have sinus issues. Of course, Donna could have sinus issues, Lisa could have sinus issues, and they'll have two completely different treatment plans because you treat the person that arrived that day based on a variety of diagnostic factors, including a ton of things, depending on the practitioner. Where was I? Okay, so let's say allergies. You do have an allergy response occurring. This is what a person would recommend for acupuncture. That will almost automatically apply to acupressure. However, I also hypothesize that automatically applies to acufocus. After and during your acupuncture treatment, you can put E, cognitive attention, on the point. And then the more you know about, and again, that's the disadvantage, is the practitioner needs to tell the person what to do. So I would tell Donna, imagine, maybe we do CV17. Maybe she has a cough or a wheezing. Imagine CV17, and when you breathe, feel the energy go down into your feet, into K1. CV17 down into K1 as often as you can remember. Just embody that, just do that, put your focus there whenever you can remember, and go about your day. She is doing acupressure because it's putting a form of cognitive pressure on the area, if we're going to use the word pressure, in those areas, thereby creating the physiological response, and thereby increasing the probability of a positive treatment outcome. That's my hypothesis. And of course, I need the cognition or the neurology, or at least to work with neurologists to make that happen, or at least to make it something that you can see. And I actually met somebody who is into digital imaging, 2D imaging, and I'm like, let's stay connected, because someday I'm going to have some stuff that I need you to digitally create for me. As we start to put all of this data together, I want to be able to put it in an image that people can see to a certain extent. And it's like, oh, we can actually improve treatment outcomes by recommending certain types of cognitive focus. But again, that will be for a limited number of people, right? Because not everybody's going to do it. Not everybody's going to find that interesting. But some people will be like, you know what? I have stage 3 cancer, and I'm going to do anything I can to heal that, to correct that imbalance, even if that includes putting my mind on the yang teng and following that channel down to other areas. I'll do that because I want to live. Well, that's the motivation maybe to do it, or they're already embodying to some extent, or they're already practiced to some extent. They have to have the ability to focus intention. And if anybody wants to know what intention is, you can just raise your arm. You intend it. You don't think about it. It's not mechanical. You're not, my arm is about to raise and now my hand is coming into the screen. I am officially raising my hand. This is happening. I am using my different muscle. You don't do that. You just intend it and will it. Boom. That is intention and will. You just intended it. E led the motion, the action, which is, of course, comes from the energy of chi. E leads chi. Every time you raise your hand without thinking about the mechanics of raising your hand, you have just intended it. And of course, when you put attention with intention, you get conscious creation. Any questions? So I do see myself eventually doing a Yangshen workshop. We'll probably break it down a little bit. Although this is a very easy to read book, it's suggesting quite a bit for an individual to do. And as I mentioned to Shayna, it is missing the sexual practice or the sexual energy approach. I know why, because Sun Mi Miao can be misunderstood with some of his recommendations towards sexuality. So I'm going to help demystify
for the same reason you didn't want to introduce hunting power until we had a basic practice in place, because it could be overemphasized, focused upon, out of context and out of balance.
Yes, I will probably put this at the beginning of hydrostasy, because at a point in hydrostasy, you can create the space, and you can actually work. And we'll start with alchemy, in a manner of speaking, in warrior training. And guess what? Sexual essence in traditional Chinese medicine, Jing, is not Jin, but Jing is um, it's an energy. It's like Kundalini in a manner of speaking. It is an energy that can be used for creation. And if we go about just involved in the biological destroyer, just throwing our essence all over that doesn't sound good. No, um, wasting essence, spending it. Let's put it that way. In a very willy-nilly, crazy way, you're basically just you're losing life force, and it could be detrimental to the overall balance of the human being. So I do think it's important. She didn't include it in here probably because she didn't know how to come to terms with, because yeah, some of the way that he talks about it is not in alignment with modern society.
But there's a lot of that Kundalini, there's a lot of that at play in all interaction, right? Because it's where one living being and its flow of chi is connecting with another living being's flow of chi, and that creates a third thing, right? The alchemy of that creates an it is creation.
Mhm.
It creates an energy all its own. So it does happen in that parallel dynamic happens with all relationship
Yes,
of living things with each other,
yes.
right?
Uh,
The energy bodies of living things
mhm.
that interact form is a creation of a third thing.
Yes,
And it's unique unto itself.
yes, I can see that. And also when I mean creation, I don't just mean babies, of course. It's
Of course.
yeah, the area that is associated with Jing is also associated with personal power. The way that I term it, will is could be a phrase that indigenous to what is now America, they would define it as just a will. Like the will to get anything done is coming from the lower Dantian. And that's your area-ish for Jing as well. But in terms of alchemy, you mix the Jing with the Qi, with the Shen, to simplify. I don't want to make it more difficult in how Qi transforms in the body. And there's so many ways to look at Qi too. It's so demystified to me. There's so many ways to look at the internal energy and chemical, and it's all working together. It's just a very general word to incorporate quite a bit. Um, the term Qi. But the essence, that vital essence, is critically important to the overall alchemy. If you remove that, by giving it away too much, by not being secure with your thoughts in regards to sexuality, you will leak power, in a manner of speaking. It's a different kind. I'm talking about it in a different context. Not
Right.
yeah,
But it's that quote that still applies for everything. It's just
balance. Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yep.
So if you're approaching your sexuality, if that's the topic that we're going to choose, because we live in different interactions and subcategorizing them is just for the purpose of explanation, and so we can see the parallels between them. But the basic dynamic is the basic principles are always the same, right?
Yes.
So that's why that quote that you read about Yang Shen, I have to keep looking at the words, I'm sorry, um, applies to everything, really. It applies to every profession, career, relationship, including the one with yourself. It applies to everything because all the principles are in there of balance.
Yeah, I agree. I hit a button and the screen came up, and I don't know why.
So I don't know if if it actually needed sexuality as a separate thing,
It
but
does.
because it's so common amongst all people, it might be
No,
useful.
it's
So
it was included with Sun Mi Miao. He included and it needs to be there 100%.
it was included with what?
Sun Min Miao, he did have an area on sexuality. It's just so foreign because it comes from an ancient time. It needs to be, you need to understand it through a modern lens and balance. Yeah, but it needs to be there. 100% needs to be there. It absolutely, I'm retracting 100%. I'm not sure where that came from. It absolutely needs to be there. I will say that one thing that we could discuss if you find it interesting is the elements of push hands in terms of the practice. The making a connection, staying connected, as it moves, you move, no force, no try. First of all, you can apply all of those elements. I'll take a picture of it so you can see the different ones. All of those elements can be applied to you engaging the present moment. Engage it. Don't try to control it. Move with it. Change with it. I said that maybe already. Does that make sense? So the way that the Tai Chi does push hands, we can apply that first to the present moment and ourselves, how we interact with ourselves, and then deliberate folly, drum roll please. We can use that in our deliberate folly practice when interacting with other people. You remove your own ego when you do this. If Lisa starts to talk to me and I want to use my deliberate folly, I am going to connect to what she's saying. I'm going to give her my focus. As the conversation moves, I move with it. I'm not trying to control the discussion. I'm listening, I'm responding, I'm a part of everything. I'm not trying to get ahead of her. I'm not trying to prove anything to her. I'm not trying to displace her. So every single element of push hands in Tai Chi can be added to communication with other human beings, communication with ourselves, communication with the present moment. And so I will be organizing that as a part of either counterbalance or most likely warrior training. I think that's getting into the next step. So one thing I'll say about counterbalance is it is organized completely in Tai Chi. So all the Tai Chi terms will translate to the Qigong counterbalance phase because it is the Tai Chi mind. The art of redirection, not using force against force. E leads Qi. Every single, so basically counterbalance is the embodiment of Tai Chi. If that makes sense, because that's where redirection came from. Yeah. And so I am naming the second book, Qigong Phase 2, the Tai Chi Mind. And that will be ready reasonably soon.
Can't wait.
That is in the background though, amongst everything else, but basically what I'm doing is about 1 paragraph a day. So if I keep my 1 paragraph a day pace, it will get finished without worry. It is slow, but it is what it is.
Anything that's illustrated and outlined as that has all the principles of everything we do is useful. It's just like you saying I focused on the points while I'm doing my exercise or when I'm doing my breathing or when I'm doing my posture. Doing learning push hands and counterbalance, we've already done counterbalance, right? So this is just an extension of it.
Yeah.
And and then any extension of it is just more fine tuning.
Yes.
So that you can see the connection between everything. And as your life flows, makes practice more accessible and more fine tuned. And then the relationships with everything else become clearer.
Yep.
It's all lens clearing.
Can't disagree. The lens of perception. All right. Any questions? Anything I could help you with practice-wise this week? Any questions, comments, or concerns? I am ideally keeping the session to about an hour. I'm okay with an hour and a half if we have questions and comments. So now's the time. Anything that I can help you with? Okay. All right. Well, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please just let me know. Since we're only doing this one session and it's just an hour and 15 minutes or hour and 30 minutes, send me questions, send me things that can help you. I really want to make sure that I am making myself available so that I can assist your EGONG practice, because that's what this is all about. Michael, did you have something?
Thanks for doing it, Ernest. Yeah, just around communication,
Yes.
as an attempt to control.
Yes.
If there's a need for communication, I'm going to call it so that a few things around life can be done smoothly, more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm noticing it as an attempt to control.
So you're noticing your communication.
So I want to let it. I want to let it go, and I want to let it go and allow instead of attempt to control.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like I see it, certain things in the world. I see it as right. I see it as necessary to communicate so that I can be productive, so I can be effective, in my roles.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also see it as an attempt to control when the repetitive style or repetitive mind comes back into it, and it creates anxiety.
Right. Well, we have to be practicing the basics of EGONG to put the push hands method, you could say, or the deliberate folly. I call it deliberate folly when it is interacting with other people outside of a martial art. That's in warrior training. So first of all, like you said, when things start to become intrusive, when they become repetitive, when things that are habitual start to come into the communication process, it has been corrupted. And very likely, if not indefinitely, you've lost your practice. We've lost our points of attention, we've lost our breath, we've lost our practice. So first we have to build that, and that is, and you're not in foundation, I know that. Like you're if anything, you're 100% in that counterbalance phase. I don't want to say 100% because I don't know what percentage you're in any phase. We'd need to talk much more, but very likely there's going to be a lot of counterbalance based on the questions and things. So that needs to be done. So when you notice that thought going into the conversation, the redirection technique is required. However, you can't see that until you've done the earlier parts of the EGONG practice, because you won't have enough cognitive attention training to see these thoughts and see these intrusive, trying to control manipulative things as they're occurring. And it's very subtle when you meet somebody and you're like, yeah, well, I was the captain of the football team in high. Why did they fucking care about that? Nobody gives a shit about you being the football captain in high school. You said that because you're attempting to shape how they view you, and that is a form of control. You're trying to nudge somebody to agree with you. You're trying to show somebody the error in their ways. They didn't ask you, right? So there is a form of manipulation and control. So the ultimate answer, Michael, is first, make sure that your foundation is in place. Second, make sure that you're prepared to counterbalance. Because your foundation's in place, you can see your mind a little better and you can redirect as necessary. And then when you are more rooted from those two things, we can start to do our deliberate folly a little bit more. You can't do deliberate folly unless you're able to watch yourself. You have to be able to watch every single thing that you're putting out in order to know what you're putting out, so you know what to do with it in terms of redirection and connection and everything else. But I won't have enough time to go into it, Michael, but the points, and I'll put it in our chat today, the group chat, the points of push hands become the same points of deliberate folly. And that is how you communicate with the moment. The moment. You practice it first with the moment. That's what the warrior training segment will be about. Take your push hands practice and connect. Maintain connection. Be soft with the connection, gentle without trying to control, but steel wrapped in cotton, where there's still integrity underneath that softness. All of those principles you do with yourself, you do with the moment, and then you can do it with other people. So when you're having your business meetings, you know what they're doing. You know they're talking shit. You know they're trying to control. but you know it, you see it, you don't have to respond to it. You can redirect it. You can follow your deliberate folly techniques and see even more. Does that make sense, Michael? So easy answer, lots of practice necessary. And I'll take a picture of the note card that I have the different aspects of push-in, which is the same aspects of deliberate folly. And deliberate folly is the best way in my, according to Igong and everything that we've talked about, to communicate and engage and collaborate with other people without trying to manipulate, without trying to control, and while being out of your own way. And you can learn so much about, well, why are they saying this? Why are they so attached to this? You start to feel where things are coming from, and you don't
Right.
have to respond to that the way that maybe you would have in the past, because of one of the attributes of the first 3 layers is impeccable self-awareness as it occurs, not in hindsight. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, it actually does. I see like a level of importance as you're talking. I can see like a level of importance that I'm putting on certain things on, my children or my work or my, whatever the situation is, there's a my there. There's like an ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and a level of importance that like with death as the advisor or with just like actionable flow without any attachment, there wouldn't be like a heaviness around. There wouldn't be an importance around it that then would block it. So
Well, there could
yeah,
be an importance, but it wouldn't be an importance that, basically you can have or not have and still feel free. If it's
right,
so
it's not
important that, yeah, you have to have it, you are out of balance.
well, it's the attachment to it.
And
So
that is an attachment. Yeah.
yeah,
So next week, how about I'll post the note card, and then next week we can talk about how can we apply the push hands method on an individual, ourselves, and the moment at hand. How can we play push hands with the moment? And then that will help us understand how we can play that with another person. And Michael, it does remove a lot of the attachment to the construct of self. Why is this in warrior training? Because we should be redirecting any thought that just goes back, especially if it's repetitive and habitual and not making you feel well, that goes back to self. So that's what we'll do
That
next
would
week.
really be great.
Okay, we'll
That would
start
really
that.
be great to talk about. I mean, I think of the word the instead of my or his or hers in Michael's explanation right now.
Yeah.
It's not even death as the advisor and all of that. Just this is what's happening now. So the point of attention that is happening there and that point of attention and this point of attention, they're just points on a graph.
Yes.
They have no personality. Like once I can detach myself to that degree, then it's just a bunch of things coming together, and it helps me to depersonalize the whole thing and then just see it as a push hands sort of. I mean, I didn't use that until today
Yeah.
as my observation, but my simple observation is I can identify, I can appreciate where they're at, I can appreciate where they're at, I can appreciate I've been somebody else's asshole. There's nothing that's happening in this circumstance that it couldn't be, we couldn't just exchange roles. Once you start doing levels and things like that, you get lost in it.
You
And
do.
that's the attempt to control and then it becomes personal. So yeah, I think that would be great if you would illustrate that
Mhm.
with your, eloquent explanation. That would be
Of course.
great for,
Yeah.
it answers Michael's question
Mhm.
in terms of interpersonal dynamics. And I'm interested in Ida, I think so I think it would apply to the group.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'll post the note card so that you guys can kind of go over that. And then in the meantime, Michael, you can look at everything that you're doing and you could look at the primary motivation behind it. Why, Donna, why would we do push hands? Physical push hands, Tai Chi push hands, where 2 wrists come together and we start moving. And why would we do that? What's the point?
because it's the flow of the way everything works. So it is what we're
Okay.
just talking about. It's in our conversation, it's in our personal relationship, it's in our, so we're moving with. We're
Sure.
moving with and we're adapting and we're accommodating, and that's how everything flows. So yeah. Yeah, you just type to learn balance.
There you go. I loved your answer, Donna. I think it's 100% applicable, but I was looking for that one little particular word.
And I just have to use infinitely more words and put it far more succinctly.
And it would, well, the one word, learn. That's it. Why would two people join hands in physical push hands? To learn, period. Learn about themselves, learn about the other person, learn about themselves and the other person in relation to the environment. What about your conversations with other people, Michael? Because you brought the term up, I'm not picking on you, but this is something that in the meantime, before we have our study next week, are your conversations, are you there to learn and grow? If the answer is no, then you're very likely trying to control in some way. So if you arrive at every single thing, I'm going to learn, not necessarily judge, that's an opinion about another person, but I'm going to learn from the moment. I'm going to learn from this person. I went into Tai Chi class with, I am here to learn. I know it. I'm going to get an A+ in this class. I could take the final right now and I would have an A+. But I still learned new things because I came with that push hands. I'm here to learn. I'm not here to control. I'm not here to pretend I'm better. I'm not here to personify or, show my ego side. No, I am here to learn. I am on this earth to learn, grow, expand, evolve. If your conversations are about that, chances are you're A-okay. If your interactions with other human beings are about that, chances are you're not violating a single warrior training principle. And marriage is about that. Personal relationships are about that. Every relationship and the relationship with ourselves and the moment is about that. Am I here to learn from myself? Am I here to learn from the moment? Am I here to learn from other people? Am I here eventually in Qigong, in hydrostasy specifically, am I here to learn from the energy body? You can learn directly from the energy body to the extent that I can't even imagine. So I'm not going to put that into a box, but
It's not necessarily for the object of achieving. There's a new website that I fell upon that I go to for entertainment, and it is a dance class, and it's a bunch of people, and they've all learned basic steps from basic dances, and they have a library of songs that they all know. And then it's an improv type thing. So they get two people that are randomly chosen and they put them together and a song comes on and they create a dance from it. And that's it. And I watch it all the time because it's like push hands. It's okay, we got this song, we've got this thing, and the two of us are going to create something out of it. And they're inventing this dance in the moment, and I find it completely entertaining and informative, and so I like to watch them. But it's that, so it doesn't matter, they are learning, they're more, they are focused on themselves and what they're going to do in the next moment to the music, as well as what the other person is, so they can adapt to them to create this fluid, eloquent thing. And it's fascinating to watch. It's like improv. It's like when I did improv in theater. They'd give us, you take a thing from a hat, and it was, this is your character, this is that character, here's the situation, and here's the dilemma, go. And you had to just invent a scene in the moment. That's push hands to me.
yes, maybe not as organized and everything, but yes. Yeah, and we'll go over it. See how all of that applies. Okay, well, I will see everybody on Wednesday next week. We'll just jump straight into the discussion of if you remember, I had a little magazine called Relationship Tweezo. So I've been working on these concepts for a very long time. So let's get started. Next week, I'll start to kind of organize it and lay it out and show you what it's all about. And in the meantime, I'll post the note card. And those are using some of the Chinese words, some of the Chinese terms. I'll break it down into an even simpler format. Connect, join, stick, adhere, adapt, those types of things. So I'll incorporate all of that, and it'll be, of course, very structured, but you can play with it. Okay, well, I will see you guys again next week. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll post this up to YouTube for you. And hopefully, yes, Ida, hopefully this is just the right information at just the right time to help things come together with our practice. That's what the group study is all about. Creating the possibility for the information to be the right information at the right time based on the questions that are asked and the group that arrives that day. Oh my gosh, you can see the principles in our group study. All right, well, I will see you guys again on Wednesday if you can make it. But until then, if you have questions, comments, I'm always here to help.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Ernest.
much.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yep, see you guys again soon.